And he constantly talks about which bridges he used to pee under and how he misses driving a cab. He asks all the cab drivers, where do you pee?
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Yeah, baby.
And for Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Boom shakalaka.
Ooh, he's heating up.
That's right, he's heating up.
He's heating up.
On fire.
But have you seen some of the tweets from Larange, by the way? The NBA Live thing made me think about Larange.
He's
in
England or Scotland or somewhere.
Yeah,
right
he's in
now.
the UK. They're doing a tour of the UK, and he's got some badass pictures, especially of Scotland. It looks like fucking Hot Fuzz up there. It looks like these. For those of you who don't know, Larange is a wonderful friend and producer of hip hop music that does our theme song, and he's on tour in the UK and. It looks very pretty. Hopefully, he's not running into Timothy Dalton and a bunch of dickheads.
Speaking of Timothy Dalton, I thought today when I was watching a bit of Jurassic Park, Pierce Brosnan could play most Sam Neill roles, but I don't know that Sam Neill could play most Pierce Brosnan roles.
I'm trying to figure out how you got there, dog. So, okay, Timothy Dalton, then to Pierce Brosnan, sudden Pierce Brosnan.
James Bond. That's all the connection I need.
Okay. I got you.
They both played James Bond.
And then a Sam Neill thing.
And we launched a Die Another Day or Halle Berry Dies, whatever. We launched that today. So James Bond is in my mind. I'm watching Jurassic Park, and what happened was I heard Sam Neill say a line, and it sounded like Pierce Brosnan, because I'm racist and all British people sound alike.
Yeah, that's right.
Then I started thinking about Pierce Brosnan in that role, and I realized it would have been just as good. You don't lose anything. I'm not trying to knock Sam Neill. They're both great actors. But I don't know that Sam Neill could have pulled off like Thomas Crown Affair or James Bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Sam Neill's from New Zealand, so they're not all British people. Just saying.
But New Zealanders are British.
Is he New Zealand?
Am I even more racist than I thought?
New Zealand.
We better get it right because
I'm sorry. Jesus, he sounds
Sam
fucking
Neill
British.
was born in Ireland.
There we go.
I was born in Ireland.
He has an English-born mother and a New Zealand-born father.
Aha.
His family moved to the South Island of New Zealand in 1954. He was 7. So he's all sorts of different white.
Everyone's correct. All sorts of different white.
I actually agree with your contention that Pierce Brosnan could play Alan Grant, but that Sam Neill, as much as I love Sam Neill, I don't think Sam Neill could play Pierce.
You think Brosnan You think Brosnan could play Vasily in Hunt for Red October?
That would be a stretch. That would be.
Now,
a stretch.
see, that's the first argument I've heard that I'd give credence to against my posit. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure he could play the character Sam Neill played in The Piano. That's easy enough, I think.
I have to admit, I'm not up on my piano knowledge. I saw that once.
He's the dickhead husband of Holly Hunter.
Oh, he's the husband. And then she goes with
he starts fucking Harvey Keitel.
McDick's a lot. Yeah,
that's right. McDick's a lot.
Dick.
Yeah, he shows his dick. Harvey Keitel always showed his dick back then.
I remember him having a nice dick.
Mm-hmm. it's a beautiful dick.
Beautiful dick, Peter.
Yeah.
Fuck all you want. Just wear a condom.
God, I don't know how much of that previous is going to show up at the beginning of the show.
All of it, baby.
Anyway,
all of it.
It's a basic ass episode today.
What's up, babe?
It's been several weeks, so you guys have to be pissed off about something at this point, right? There's something that's building.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
I'm just going to tell you up front, I may need to go last because I'm going off book. I'm dumping all of my rant ideas for a happy rant.
Okay. If you're not first, you're last.
I'm pissed off in a good way. You guys who are truly angry should probably go first, and then I will lift us back up.
You know, I don't know how truly angry I am, actually. It took a long time for me to try to come up with a rant. The one that I wrote down, I'm not really happy with it. Most of my, I've said this before, most of my anger is always directed towards people who drive. I hate traffic. I hate entitlement. I hate people who don't know what to do when there's a green light in front of them. I hate all sorts of things.
What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. I will take another particular thing that I hate in traffic today and say that you ever drive behind somebody who realizes, oh shit, I'm going the wrong way. And they pull into a driveway, and then they expect you to slow down and wait for them to get out of the driveway to go so that they can turn around and go to the other lane. I have never allowed anyone to do this, by the way. I'm a pretty nice driver, but when you've learned that you've been going the wrong way, and you've gone into the driveway, that's it. You are just like any other asshole who has to pull out in traffic at this point. You are not entitled to anything just because you have to do something special. Mm-hmm. And I hate it. You see it all over the place. People pulling off on, medians or the edge of the road or whatever. And they, just because you have something special to do doesn't suddenly give you powers on the street that you're like, everybody's just going to part for you to do that thing. Once you're off the road, you're off the road. The other day, it was a couple weeks ago, I was driving down Charlotte, and I was driving, towards where the post office is and everything. And there was a Jeep in front of me, and the Jeep got over into the left lane to turn somewhere. And so I started to make my move to drive past that Jeep. But that Jeep was like, oh shit, I didn't go into the right place, and pulled back out in front of me to do that thing. And they did it 3 fucking times. They went into another left lane, missed it, didn't realize it wasn't in the right place. And every single time I was like, okay, that's where they need to go. And then they would pull back out in front of me, and they're like, no, you don't have any special rights because you fucked up. There's absolutely nothing different about you and any other asshole who's turning off the road. Once you get out of the lane, you're in that lane. You have to wait for other fucking people at that point. So anyway, that's one of the many fucking things I hate about goddamn driving. I've seen so many weird things. I'm driving a lot more now because of just a lot of bullshit, but I've seen so many weird things in the last month that it makes me scared to be out there.
It's gotten a little wilder. It's gotten a little wilder recently.
I bought a dash cam I'm about to install in my car for this very purpose.
I need to do that. And
I've been spending a lot of time. This is not my rant. This is just an add-on to Chris's on a subreddit called Idiots in Cars, which is just a lot of dash cam footage.
I've seen this.
Other drivers just being shitheads, morons, everything from aggressive, angry driving to just clueless driving. But
this is like the most egregious shit that you've ever seen.
The one going around yesterday and the day before was this dude in a white Lamborghini who stopped in the street because there are cars in front of him stacked up trying to turn into a gas station. So if he goes forward, he hits a car. And this clueless girl comes turning from the perpendicular street and slams into the back of the Lamborghini. And then the rest of the video is her telling him off, saying, "That's my brand new fucking car you just hit." And then accuses him of white, privilege. It is hysterical how she's either a really good actress or she truly believes that accident was his fault, even though ultimately the video ends with the gas station attendant showing video from the surveillance cam for proof when the cops show up that the Lamborghini was sitting there still and she came up behind him and bashed right into it.
What the
And when
fuck?
she's walking up to his window, he's got his window closed, but he's still recording, and she's walking up to his window and he's like, "Ah!" Like he's just so angry that someone just wrecked his Lamborghini.
Good God.
You ever wish you were one of those people that refused to admit they were wrong?
I mean, it must be nice to go through life.
Like had some sort of. I know these people. I've run into these people that absolutely. It doesn't matter if you've got them clearly. Like you could be showing them like a signed contract that they agreed to and like initialed every word, and they will find a way to say no. It's either your fault or you know what I'm talking about, like that.
Yes, and I'm the opposite,
woman, right?
man. I'd get out of the Lamborghini and apologize if it was me in that story. I'm like, I think everything's my fault. But yeah, it must be nice to go through life thinking everything is somebody else's fault. Like even when you rear end somebody, like whatever. Anyway, drivers suck. That was you made me think of that entitlement there. That goes so far as to wreck into somebody else's rear end and blame them.
I see it. I see a lot of. I mean, even today coming back, I was driving and like there's 2 lanes, and in the right lane there's a car that's going a little bit too slow for a car that's behind it, and I'm driving. I'm not like quite there where it's like a true cutoff if you pull out in front of me, but like I'm gonna pass, and you don't have to pull out in front of me. I'm gonna pass pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And you see these people all the time. It's like, oh my God, this guy's going too slow. I need to get over right now. And that's, I mean, it just like, come on, just, can you wait for a second? Like, what is it about the second that's so unnerving here? Like you could just wait for me to pass. It's the same thing when, you know, somebody who's waiting to pull out into traffic, you're the only car left. There's like nothing. There's fucking tumbleweeds behind you. And somebody fucking pulls out in front of you. And like, you couldn't wait 2 seconds to, I understand that sometimes you get to a place and you're like, man, I've been sitting here forever. If I don't take my chance, I got to do it. But not in these situations. So.
About, 14 years ago, when I was still going to church, I was teaching a Sunday school class for teenagers, high school kids. And the lesson every week boiled down to me saying, selfishness is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. And that was 14 years ago, but I fucking called it, baby. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like every time we would talk about, so the basis of the Sunday school class, so you guys don't think that I was just, I was still like a Christian at this point. The idea was to take controversial issues like gay marriage, things that were controversial in the church, and apply Wesley's quadrilateral to them, where you're supposed to be able to take something like we talked about, like downloading MP3s illegally or what have you, and you apply scripture, logic, history, and experience. And, at the end, you sort of combine those 4 perspectives to figure out what you believe about this perspective. And I never told them what to believe, but we always ended up talking about selfishness. Murder, somebody was being selfish. Robbery, somebody's being selfish. You can trace any problem with humanity back to selfishness. People who never admit that they're wrong, the actual definition of selfishness.
Yeah.
What if you download an MP3 illegally for your gay marriage?
That's a good
What's
question.
funny is that I bet you there are churches all over the place, well-meaning, that use illegally downloaded music all the time. I bet it's common as all get out.
Yeah, of course, man.
Anyway,
who pays for music anymore?
As an aside, though, one of the big reasons I probably left going to church anymore was taking one of these Sunday school classes, and like someone telling me that some child in Africa who's never heard of God before is going to go to hell because they know intrinsically that there is a God. And I'm like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. I just can't.
That's crazy. I can't wait to talk about Way Down Workshop stuff in a little bit. And speaking of religion, my son's going through confirmation classes right now. So I've been inundated with religion weirdly after all these years. And I'm like, up. This is, I thought I wasn't going to think about this anymore. Anyway, my rant is fairly simple. I have been binge watching The Sopranos. In advance of watching the mini Saints of Newark, which I think Chris is going to talk about later on.
I am.
I have held off on watching that movie because I'm halfway through season 6, the end of the road there. Because every time I'm like, you know what, I'll just cut it off here and watch the movie. Every time I do that, Tony will mention something about Dickie Maltasanti, or like he'll talk about his dad, or he'll talk about one thing or another. And it probably has nothing to do with Many Saints of Newark. Probably. But I'm like, maybe, having that sort of perspective recently will kind of give a little more contextual succulence to the to the watching of the movie. The Sopranos is widely considered, I don't think universally, but widely considered as one of the best TV series of all time. If not the best.
It's certainly the series that brought cable television into a new era of storytelling.
Absolutely. Yes.
Even if you don't like The Sopranos, you have to give it that, because even the HBO shows before that, they were okay.
Mm-hmm.
You had your Arlises of the world and your Dream On and all that bullshit that was playing.
What is it? In the Mind of a Married Man was one of them. Like, yeah.
I don't. When did Oz come into play? Was Oz before that?
I think Oz was before.
Oz
I think it may have overlapped.
Yeah, they sort of overlapped, but it was The Sopranos that brought people to. Oz. You've anybody who's ever watched Oz, and I'm not one of them, but I it's a series that I still need to see. But anybody who ever watched Oz tells me how fucking amazing it is, and J.K. Simmons and all that. They always talk about how great he is in that. But yeah, that show after The Sopranos, you started seeing everybody just started. HBO upped their game. All the cable companies started upping their game.
I mean, even House of Cards, all the Netflix shows, the whole era of prestige television, movie stars and directors flocking to that format. I think it goes back to The Sopranos as one of the key first dominoes, if not the very first domino. For sure.
And by the way, having watched, most of the series again fairly recently, it's amazing. I would put it up there as one of the best TV series of all time. I think my favorite probably, and I think the best, is Breaking Bad for me. I think it's just start to finish almost perfection. But there are many, many other contenders up there. My issue and my rant is, and it's not this show's fault, weirdly enough, but the bingeability of The Sopranos in this format, where you're just consecutive one after the other, that kind of thing, where you get on a roll, like you do with Breaking Bad, like you do with Watchmen, like you do with, a billion other TV shows, White Lotus and all that shit. There is so much there. It's such a bridge. It's so fascinating. It's such a bridge of regular NYPD Blue, X-Files, like we have an overarching story, but we have episodic episodes, and it makes binging the show 30% less satisfying. There's so many episodes where it ends with Tony's giving a look off knowing that somebody's going to get their comeuppance, or Carmela's looking askance and saying maybe something's going on with that. Or it ends with Christopher with the fucking spike up his arm, like shooting up and everything. And then, or like Junior, wandering off into traffic. And it's like, oh shit, let me click on the next one, baby. This is going to be resolved. No! No, it'll go
Yeah.
off on something completely different. Like these relationships will go on unaffected. Yeah, they'll come back to it later on. Like, hey, remember that time that you know, Dickie and Chrissy and Mikey and Pussy and Buddy and shit like that. Like they all did that. Well, I don't forget that. Yeah, but you did forget that for fucking 5 episodes in between here, where you completely write out, you know, a series of characters.
Yeah,
and I'm still loving it. And I will, I do remember very much the 6th season, which I watched religiously at the time. But you know, some of the first 5, it had been forever since I'd seen those. So there were some things that I didn't remember happening, and it's very satisfying watching a show after that long. Probably would be the same with Lost for me these days. But it's so weird when you do something like that with a show as so great as The Sopranos. It doesn't happen in something like Breaking Bad. There is a lot of throughput from one episode to the next. There's a bridge from one episode to the next. And I think, you know, I don't think the Sopranos intended for binging, because it was before binging, essentially, right? Like 24, for example. 24 would go literally from one episode into the next because it was in real time. It's a bizarre experience. And if anybody else is, which according to the New York Times, like a bunch of people are rewatching The Sopranos in advance of many Saints of Newark. If anybody else has had this issue, let me know, because it's a little bit like, the fuck happened with Christopher? Like, he was fucked up when he was in Italy trying to scale Mount Vesuvius. They came back, he's fine for like, you know, the next 6 episodes. And like, what, was he off heroin that whole fucking time? What the fuck? What the fuck?
It's amazing how much and The Sopranos still comes from that network TV kind of philosophy. Yeah. I've probably shared this a couple of times on the podcast, but I remember being a big OC fan and watching watching the OC and watching the, you know, which is it's basically a teen soap opera and everything. And I remember the Benjamin McKenzie character was starting to date. It was like one of those. It was one of his new girlfriends that wasn't Misha Barton on the show. And so like, or he had an ex or something that showed up.
Yep.
And so like in one of the episodes, it's like the ex shows up and there's like some chemistry, and you're like, oh my God, I hope that Misha Barton doesn't see them together, because that's going to be a big deal. And so like, at the very end of the episode, Misha Barton, or whoever it is that is entangled with Benjamin McKenzie at the time, sees them together walking out of the house, and they're like, so, hey, what's up? And that's the end of the episode. And you're like, okay, next week they're going to address this.
Shit's on.
And then the next week it's fucking Adam Brody in his kitchen saying
it's cracking wise,
quirky shit and everything. And there was no conversation about why is your ex coming out of the house or anything like that. It's a thread. Everything's a thread. Like, you got to remember it, but it's not super important until it's super in, so yeah,
it's a big
network
difference
TV
between modern binging episodes and shows. Stranger Things is like this. House of Cards, as you mentioned, had a very linear thing, and I think a lot of that was David Fincher being involved in saying, we're not going to have a breath or a pause in here. We're going to ratchet up the tension.
I think they've decided that those are basically 4 or 5 hour movies at this point. You're just watching them in pieces.
Queen's Gambit did the same thing. Queen's Gambit, if Anya Taylor-Joy, or her character, was on the downslide, which she frequently was, at the end of an episode, next episode, typically, she was going to be fucked up. And still winning chess games, of course, but like chess matches, I should say. But yeah, I mean, it was this very linear thing, and it's frankly a little bit weird to go back and watch something. In fact, I kind of want to do that with Lost, to see if they do that too. Of course, they're more insulated.
I think they did. I think Lost would frequently have some huge whammy at the end of an episode, and then they would not immediately address what's going on because they always wanted to push that mystery further and further and further back.
So they could be
like, well, wait a minute, what was the fucking light that came out of the hatch?
They just cut to Hurley playing golf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And how long was it before we found out that there was a dude down in the hatch who had to keep on hitting the switch? The island.
That was season
first
2,
or second season, right?
Yeah. It took a while. Is that episode started off with that was that Mama Cass song or whatever? It was like, make your own kind of music, and he would it would always be timed to every whatever hour and 23 minutes or something. I think it was where he had to hit that button and then they continued making seasons all the way up into your disappointment, your inevitable disappointment.
Anyway, it's not if you feel the urge to rewatch The Sopranos, especially if you're doing it in lieu of watching The Wire that you've put off for a long time, you should do that. But just know it's not as standard of a binge watching as you're used to over the last 10 years or so.
Okay, so my rant. I'm chucking all the things I'm angry about out the window for now.
Chuck them.
Because I discovered a new subreddit on Reddit last night, and I spent about an hour on it. That's not an exaggeration. If I were exaggerating, I would say I spent all night on it or something. I literally spent 60-plus minutes on this one single subreddit. One of the reasons I love Reddit, besides the fact that it's free, besides the fact that you can get the content you might find on Twitter without the fighting, usually. There's a subreddit for everything. There really is. And some of them are quite entertaining. So I'm going to set this up with 2 subreddits I already have known and loved. One is called No, 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 Yes. And by the way, this is not a Destiny's Child song. So this is a video where these are almost all GIFs or videos where it looks like somebody's about to have a catastrophe. It might be a drunk guy wobbling on the edge of a pier or a skateboarder headed right for a truck he doesn't see. And the viewer is thinking, no, 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 no. But at the last second, something amazing happens. And you're like, yes! So, sister subreddit, yes, 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 no.
Oh, no.
Is someone who is very, very close to some amazing act, right? Like a guy who's trying to run across a pond by only stepping on a couple of rocks, or a guy who's juggling something amazing. And then at the very end, catastrophe. And you're like, no! Those are both amazing subreddits, and I think you should check them out. My newest discovery, maybe. Now, this is a subreddit that has literally taken those 2 previous subreddits and is now just not telling you how it's going to end. And so every GIF, you don't know if it's going to end in catastrophe or great success. And the kicker is 99% of the submissions on this subreddit are titled maybe. So you have no fucking clue. There's no context given other than the still before you click play of what you're about to watch. And every now and then you see something maybe you wish you hadn't seen. Every now and then you see something that makes you laugh your ass off. But what I love about it is the guessing game. And maybe this is only because I love those other 2 subreddits, but the guessing game of which way is it going to go? Which way is it going to go? Is he going to break his leg in half, or is he going to complete that stupid gymnastics move? And I had so much fun. I'm going to go back all the time. And I thought you guys might enjoy that experience. So I'm sharing it with you. That's my rant for the day.
I'm going to spend definitely 60 minutes on that.
No, yes. When it's really yes, no.
Anybody ready for some recommends and warns?
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
Now, this has been a minute since we've done this. So I'm excited to hear y'all's.
Y'all's.
I will, since the conversation is fresh about The Sopranos, I don't think I'm alone in this, but I'm warning many Saints of Newark. It is not what you're hoping for if you have watched 6 seasons of The Sopranos.
This is what I've heard. Yeah.
It focuses on Dicky Moltisanti and his it played very well by Alessandro Nivola. It focuses on him and his workings sort of into the, I don't know, it's hard to even call him like a mobster or whatever in this or whatever, but if you're looking for sort of the rise of Tony Soprano in this, you're not going to get it.
That's what I keep hearing. The marketing is all about Michael Gandolfini, and the whole trailer was about like him in this chaotic world.
I'm
and
always
how that
getting
molded
cute.
Yeah. But so it's not about.
I'll tell you what, it takes about 30 or 40 minutes of this 2-hour movie for Michael Gandolfini. Michael Gandolfini, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say, I don't know who I was about to say.
Imperioli?
Michael Imperioli.
Yes, that's who I keep saying.
Michael Gandolfini, it takes 30 or 40 minutes before he even shows up in this movie.
Wow.
Because first off, he's being played by a kid who's eerily similar to Robert Eiler, who played Tony's son.
AJ?
AJ, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
that kid
wild.
That kid's a fucking dead ringer. And Vera Farmiga, by the way, who's playing, his mom, is almost doing an Edie Falco thing, but it's not the same character. It's
that's wild.
It's almost like Tony married his mom. I don't know if that's what they're going for on this, but Vera Farmiga sounds and acts so much like Edie Falco does in that thing. But it's more about Moltisanti and like his relationship with his dad, played by Ray Liotta, of course.
Of course.
And Ray Liotta plays 2 roles in this. He plays Dickie's dad, and he also plays the brother of Dickie's dad, who's in prison. And it's basically about, Dickie has a temper, that leads to certain situations in his life where he doesn't have a premeditated sense of doing some of these things, but somebody pisses him off enough, then he gets angry enough to kill somebody over a certain thing, and that changes his whole life. And then Leslie Odom is in this movie.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. He plays a guy named Harold McBrayer in this, and Dickie is using him and his crew, and they call them the Black Saints in this it's like it's set in the 60s or whatever, and there is a sort of an emerging turf war about to happen, but it's not everything that's building in this never comes to a point of like, oh, this is so satisfying or anything like that. It's just kind of like, here's the story of Dicky Moltisanti, and here's how he fucked up his life, and this is how certain elements of what you end up seeing in The Sopranos, the sort of the roadmap to what that goes. But it's nothing. We don't see anything about Tony's first real interest in getting into this business, or there's a lot of like wink, wink, nod, nod, like, oh, there's Carmela in a scene, or oh, remember that story they told in season 3, episode 4? Well, here's that play acted for us, essentially.
I see. Yeah.
And so like people who are really shrewd on The Sopranos will be like, we'll feel good that, oh yeah, that was something they talked about. Oh no, we got to see it. Oh sweet. And it means nothing. Nothing of it just doesn't mean anything. It has moments where it's trying to be The Godfather. It feels like at the beginning of it and everything, it's got it's got a wedding, it's got all this stuff is happening, forming at the wedding, but it just it never comes through, man. I don't even know if this movie works well. Like if you were to take the Sopranos out of it or whatever, and you were just to watch this movie not knowing it was anything to do with the Sopranos, I don't think it works well just on its own at all. Like this is not a movie you would go watch just as a standalone. So I don't know what they were, what their intent was with this movie. I really don't. I mean, if it's not really to placate Sopranos fans, because they basically said "fuck you" to the Sopranos fans in this movie. And they weren't trying to make something else that like, hey, like it wasn't like Rian Johnson doing Last Jedi or something, whereas here's something completely different that you didn't think about. It's not really even that. It's just it's maybe too straightforward of a day in the life in the 60s, and it just so happens to have characters played by different people that from another TV show in it. So everybody's doing impressions, and it's really distracting.
So Billy Magnuson is he Paulie?
Yeah, and he's got that everybody's doing that thing, that thing that they do, and there's somebody playing what's his name? Huh? Yeah, Silvio. Someone's playing Silvio, and he's got that straight up posture and that look down thing that he does.
Look like Stevie Van Zandt. There's nobody in the history of ever that looks like Stevie Van Zandt.
And then Corey Stoll's playing Uncle Junior in this, and it's so weird.
Okay, so at least is Vera Farmiga good as the mom? Oh, damn. I thought that was good casting.
She's so distracting, especially with the big, huge blue contacts they put in her eyes. And she's doing that Edie Falco thing. I swear to God, they're trying to say that Tony married his mom eventually with Edie Falco. But like, she's fine. I mean, she just doesn't have, it's not a Sopranos movie really. So like, her effect on Tony and everything doesn't matter to this movie whatsoever. I mean, she's what you've seen in the trailer is, she's an over dramatic person, everything that happens is like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? And yeah, that's perfectly fine. And she's fine, but like, it's a distracting performance that doesn't have anything to do with anything, really. I mean,
I have enjoyed the trivia tidbits that have come out as everyone does interviews for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ray Liotta, they approached him to be on the show, and he declined, and it's the role that Joey Pantoliano eventually
really
took. And then I read an interview with David Chase, who said by the time they were done filming the show, he absolutely fucking hated James Gandolfini's guts. And like
the actor or the character?
The actor.
No kidding.
Like they were having their final cast meal after they were wrapped. And Chase's wife says, hey, Jim, come sit next to us. And Gandolfini just walked by and pretended like he didn't hear. Like they were bitter. They ended up making a movie together after this, so it must have healed. The other tidbit I liked, Van Zandt told a story that Chase originally cast him as Tony. Mm-hmm. And then when they went to HBO was like, abso-fucking-lutely not.
Yeah.
Well, look, Steven Van Zandt is a great guitarist, great vocalist. He has one speed in that show. And it is funny. You talk about ancillary stuff. I did read an interview with him that his relationship with Tony in the show was modeled on his relationship in real life with Bruce Springsteen. Because Bruce is, the boss, and he's not making a parallel there, but like Bruce Springsteen now is so legendary that nobody can talk to him and nobody can tell him no or whatever. But Stevie Van Zandt could always like go up to him and be like, Bruce, you're acting like a fucking prick, and they're kind of like brothers. And he said he brought that kind of thing to the role of Sylvia, and it works perfectly. I mean, thank God they didn't give him a whole lot.
No, he was great for what they gave him. Yeah.
I mean,
he was always that guy.
Yeah.
He always had that quip. He would always have a quip of some sort that would just send the scene on to whatever. It was always just funny to him coming in, chiming in with something real quick, and then the scene would be over.
The only payoff, really, I mean, with him, and man, god damn, there are a couple of moments in this show that are some of the best I've ever seen. One is with the psychiatrist that Carmela sees, this old crusty dude that tells her, you got to get a divorce. And that's the first time in the entire show, and probably the last time really, where somebody says, this is fucking for real. And that's an amazing bit of show. But obviously the moment where Silvio's driving Adriana out,
Jesus,
she
knows that whole drive. Like, she knows. She starts crying. I
rewatched that, not only just on the rewatch, I'd rewound it and watched that whole sequence again, because it's funny. Every time they get ready to whack somebody, they don't just show up like fucking Joe Pesci and Goodfellas and all that stuff. Well, actually, even in Goodfellas, they bring him in and fet him and make him feel nice and comfortable. With that scene, Silvio's driving around and he's talking about Chris, and he's like, "Oh, he's a strong boy,"
and she's just crying.
She knows, baby. She's and she sees him pull off into the, on the off ramp, and she's like, and it's gut wrenching. And God, who's the lady that plays her?
Drea Di Matteo.
Drea Di Matteo is absolutely spectacular. That whole season, by the way, she gets overlooked as one of the best parts of this whole series.
Christopher.
But that whole thing where she tells him about the FBI, and god damn, we could go on all day about the Sopranos, but there are some legitimately beautiful. Last one.
Oh, geez.
Before there was Marriage Story, before there was Get Real ass conversations, there was that fight at the end of one of the seasons between Carmela and Tony. Where he's trying to move out to the garage or something like that, and she tells him about her attraction to Furio. And that shit goes on for like 20 minutes, and it gets fucking real, and it's so well done. As I said in the last segment, the show isn't perfect, the writing isn't perfect, but there are some of the best scenes ever I've ever seen in that show. And I'm still going to watch mini Saints of Newark.
Yeah,
and I probably will just revel in those little, like, hey, that's what he said in season 3, episode 4. But yeah, no, I have tempered expectations. Most trusted from you, but I've seen some wishy-washy things.
I mean, seriously, I don't know what the point is other than to pull the rug out from people who are expecting something else. Like, I definitely believe David Chase is that kind of person.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, you're an irascible bastard.
Yeah, you're expecting the rise of Tony Soprano? Fuck you. We're going to do Dickie Moltisanti and this story right here, and we're going to have Ray Liotta and bad old person makeup in one scene, and then, we're going to do this other story that we believe in, and it's going to have all sorts of meanings that you're not going to get. And, and this is, it won't have anything to do with the Sopranos. So fuck you.
Jeremy, were you a big Sopranos fan?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, over the last, when was it? Sometime in the last week and a half, HBO has been dedicating, it's over now, but has been dedicating one of their 18,000 channels to just playing every day a season.
Seriously?
Of Sopranos. Really? So, like, I caught the last 4 episodes. When I say caught, I mean it's on my TV while I'm doing shit. The last 4 episodes of the first season, but didn't see it the next day because I checked too early and assumed they were done. The next time I picked back up with it was 2 or 3 days later, and they were already on the first half of season 6. So I watched a few episodes of that, and then the next night I watched the last 4 or 5 episodes of the whole show. I'm still one of those people. I'm ready to talk about something else, but I'm one of those people that loves the way that show ended, even though I think that is David Chase being an irascible bastard. I think it's perfect. So.
Talk about something else, baby.
Okay, so let's talk about this movie Coda on Apple Plus TV Gizmo shits. I don't know what it's called.
There's more. There's more.
You got it. It's absolutely right. You got it. Right.
Coda, as the movie explains, stands for Child of Deaf Adults.
I've heard about this.
And there are enough of them around the country. There's over 40 million people with hearing loss in America. So there are thousands, tens of thousands of codas in the U.S., but they are not necessarily side by side. It's a very unique experience. So the main character is Ruby, played by a girl that I was not familiar with prior to this movie, Emily Jones. And she is the only hearing member in an all-deaf family. And Marlee Matlin plays her mom. And Marlee Matlin insisted on deaf actors playing both the husband and the son instead of hearing actors. The lead actress does not have hearing loss, but learned sign language for the movie. Of course, if you listen to any of these shows, you already know what intrigued me about this because I am losing my hearing. And basically, the family are fishermen, and the local restrictions on how much they're allowed to fish are choking all the local fishermen out of business slowly. And at one point, the deaf family, Rossi is their last name. The Rossis decide to do their own co-op. We're going to sell our own fish directly to customers instead of going through these assholes on the dock. Who's with us? And as they go around trying to sign up other fishermen, they have to rely on Ruby, who's the only person who can translate for them and for the people who are speaking. But Ruby is also a fantastic singer and really gifted. She's taking a music class in school, high school. She's a senior. And she gets paired up with a dreamy boy to do a duet with at the talent show at the end of the year. She applies to Berklee School of Music because her choir teacher tells her she's that good. But her parents are, talk about irascible bastards. They're kind of mean. They're absolutely uncouth, and they love to fuck. And so, like, when Marlee Matlin finds out her daughter has applied to music school, she says, "So if I were blind, would you be a painter?" Like, that's a very bitter, mean thing to say.
That is fucked up, yo.
It is. And what I like is that tug that this girl has the whole movie between loyalty to her family, who she does love, but who take her for granted and are kind of mean to her about that kind of stuff, and wanting to grow, wanting to get out of this fishing town and become a singer and go to music college. And essentially, they don't want her to leave because if they don't have a hearing member of their family, there's actually this incident where they go out on the boat without her, and the Coast Guard squawks a radio at them, and they can't hear it. So they don't respond. And then they come aboard, and an inspector basically says you have to have somebody on board who can hear the radio and who can hear other boats' horns. And so that give them a citation. So they don't want her to go away to college because they don't know how they're going to do fishing without her. This movie made me bawl. The way About Time made me bawl. And I'm almost positive it's because of my own personal experience losing my hearing. But the family goes to the talent show at the end, and when she starts singing the duet, it goes quiet, and I'm getting chills. You get her deaf family's experience of being able to see it and see everyone around clapping along and enjoying it, but they can't hear it. They can't appreciate their daughter's talent. Later they get home, and the dad says, "Sing it again." And the daughter, he puts his hand on the daughter's vocal cords, and she sings it, and he gets teared up, and he asks her what the song is about, and she tells him. And then she has to audition for music school. I'm not spoiling the movie. I really think you should watch it. I'm not spoiling too much plot, but her family comes in, sneaks in. They're not supposed to be there. Sneaks into the balcony to watch her audition for music school. And when she sees them, she starts signing in addition to singing so that they can understand the words as well as the people she's auditioning for can understand the music. I loved this movie.
Yo, I'm about to fucking bawl.
It's a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. It looks like that's the critic score. And so I don't think I'm alone. I know there has been a little bit of criticism about the fact that in the real world there would probably be more resources for a deaf family in this situation than just having to rely on their daughter. For instance, there's a scene where they go to the doctor, and the daughter has to go with them so that she can translate what the doctor says. And I guess from what criticism I've read, that's not legal. Like a doctor would have to have somebody would have to provide a translator, although that was news to me. Maybe there's just a resource close enough that somebody would be able to come and translate for them, whether or not it's the doctor's responsibility. I am not deaf enough to be an expert on it, and I haven't been deaf enough long enough. So I'm not here to tell you what the movie gets right and wrong about all the ins and outs of modern deaf living. But what I think the movie gets right is the ins and outs of modern deaf emotions and relationships. And it's a 2 thumbs up, super strong, as much as I probably recommended anything. I loved it.
Can we go back to them really loving to fuck?
Oh, yeah. There's a scene where she brings the handsome boy home. This is not the only scene where they fuck. They like to talk about how much they like to fuck. Dad likes to make the kids uncomfortable talking about how much he gives it to mom. But there's a scene where
I was giving it to her last night.
She brings the boy home to practice, and they're practicing their duet in her room, and then the walls start thumping because the deaf parents didn't know anybody was home, and she goes in there and finds them like absolutely going at it. And then it cuts humorously straight to everybody on the couches down in the living room. Awkward.
Yeah, this is also in addition to the Rotten Tomato score, an 8.1 on the IMDb. So
that's good.
There seems to be some consensus here that this is a good movie. This sort of reminds me too that, and even though I'm not recommending or warning today, I haven't finished the series yet, and I feel like I need to finish it before I recommend it. I guess there's been enough episodes that I can recommend it, but Only Murders in the Building, which has been playing on Hulu, just had an episode where it was from the perspective of a deaf person, and every single there's not one moment where there's an actual audible noise of dialogue, and it's all subtitles, it's all sign language. Even when like Martin Short and Selena Gomez are in a closet looking for something, they don't want to be heard, so they're sitting there like, just kind of doing that type of thing. So even when it's not from the perspective of the deaf person, they've made it where there's no audible dialogue through it. The only thing that you hear is like some whooshing sounds every once in a while, like I guess the sound that I guess that's trying to replicate what some deaf people have. I guess a whooshing kind of you can hear, maybe feel the blood or hear the blood going through your head or something. I don't know if that's what it is, but I think it's there so that you don't think there's something wrong with your volume on your TV. I think is probably the main reason.
That sounds amazing.
But it's one of those. This is why I love watching shows like these today, is because they always do. It always seems like one episode. We've been talking about bottle episodes and everything. If this is as close to a bottle episode as you can get in this show, which is a serial. It's a continuous story, but it always seems like these shows find one episode where they want to experiment with some things, and it comes out of nowhere too. Like you're watching this, it's like, okay, Steve Martin Short, Selena Gomez, everybody's being funny, they're investigating a murder, blah blah blah, and then suddenly, bam, they hit you with this episode that you didn't think they had in them. In the whole season, and it just comes out of nowhere, and it's just terrific to watch. So
my wife and I, the trailer sold us both immediately, but we decided to wait so we could binge it, and I know that's only a couple more weeks away. So
it's doing an actual like weekly release or whatever it is,
which is something that it's. You've seen Disney Plus do this. You've seen Hulu do this. You've seen Apple Plus do this with shows. there is something to be said for having that week to wait.
I don't mind it. Like we had when Loki and WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier came out. We had family Marvel nights. You know, a lot of the times they were on Fridays, and so we would just kind of, because we were all invested in the shows, and yeah, we could have done that, you know, every Friday and just, you know, serialized it then. But yeah, there is a little bit of something. Well, like, hey, let's get together and watch something.
I know one reason they probably do this is so that you will visit every week instead of just staying there for one day.
Yeah.
But the other thing that it does is it prevents people from getting on Twitter and being like, I watched all 10 episodes and here's how it ends. And and it's day one and you haven't even had a chance to even hear about this show yet. And someone's already telling you, you know, about the aliens and everything at the end of Queen's Gambit. So,
those goddamn aliens.
They always come in and fuck up the chess matches. Yep.
Fucking chess aliens. God damn it.
Fucking chess aliens.
You could call them chess bursters.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. I like where you're headed with that.
How clever.
Yeah.
Bursts out of the queen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bursts out of the queen. I have another HBO centric series, which is so weird. I'm not going to get into all of the background for this, but it's called The Way Down. It's about a cult, and it's got a weird release strategy. I want to talk about that first. It's a mini series, 5-episode documentary about a cult that just happens to be in Tennessee. Probably less than 2 or 3 miles away from where Chris was this morning. The epicenter of it was. Before I get into the details of it, they released 3 episodes of this 5-episode documentary a couple weeks ago in September. And then they're not going to release the next 2 episodes until next year is the plan.
Interesting. Do you think there might be more information that there, because wasn't there,
that's the only reason.
Wasn't there, there was a big deal about that. What was that HBO documentary about the guy who, was going to jail for murder and he was a rich guy. And what was that called?
Oh, was that the one where they ended up getting him?
I think so.
Robert Durst.
I think it is Robert Durst, actually. Yeah. What was that? It was called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. Because that ended up, I think they got information during the documentary that led to stuff. And I've never seen,
essentially.
Yeah, I've never seen the show, and I didn't follow it enough to know what exactly happened. It kind of reminds me also of what happened with Alpha Dog when they made that movie. Because people who were giving them information about what happened in Alpha Dog, like the real people, were telling them things that needed to go to court.
The attorney's like, the fuck, dude?
Yeah. So anyway,
the reason, and yes, I do kind of understand the reason. I don't know why you would release what you release now,
right?
If you are still investigating this. Here's the story in a nutshell. Help! I'm in a nutshell. Gwen Shamblin Lara, as she became after she got remarried, was the leader of this Christian-based weight loss service called the Way Down Workshop. It was originally affiliated with the Church of Christ, of which I was mostly raised, and then it branched off into its own division of Christianity, which essentially had all the hallmarks of a cult. And the series up until now, the first 3 episodes, explores that cult and how that affected the members. They interview a lot of ex-members. They interview a lot of workers for them. They interview cult interventionalists, and things like that. What happened earlier this year, I think it was in March or April, was that Gwen Shamblin, the leader of this Way Down Workshop, and this cult, and her current husband, Joe Lara, who was a TV actor that played a TV version of Tarzan back in the day, and it was now a country music singer wannabe. They were flying in a plane, a private plane, not a jet or anything like that, just a single double engine. And the plane went down over Percy Priest Lake, which is just a little south, or actually east of where we live. And everybody died on the plane. And as this came up, I started hearing the name Shamblin, and I started hearing Way Down Workshop and all that. And it sounded familiar to me. And I realized that not only was Gwen Shamblin her son and daughter that went to my school, they were also friends tangentially with some friends of mine that were a couple of years younger than me. The Way Down Workshop was prevalent in our church and in our school. I guess before it separated into this cult-like thing. And so I kind of have a personal vested interest in this. Behind the scenes of this documentary, there's a lot more that I've learned about the thing, but I'm waiting for the documentary to finish up before I kind of make some calls on that. But the main thing is the documentary itself. I'm a kind of a sucker for cult stories. I know that sounds awful, but I'm fascinated by how somebody like, in a fictional sense, Chris Hemsworth character, his character in Bad Times at the El Royale, gets the power and influence that they have over the people. The real story about David Koresh, Jim Jones, the Heaven's Gate folks. This fascinates me. It's morbid, I know, especially because a lot of these people end up dead. But it is very fascinating to me. So the fact that A, I know these people, and B, it became a full-fledged cult, and C, it happened right under our nose. Like, I live 5 miles away from Brentwood. Chris lives nearby. We all grew up around that area. Like this, and this happened during, the times that we were younger and kind of involved with this. Is very fascinating to me. So the problem that I have, though, is the way the documentary is done. You know how, Jeremy, when you were talking about the Michael Jackson documentary and he said it was like 8 hours of drone footage over a neighborhood? There's a lot of that in this.
Yeah. Why has that become so vogue, man?
That, and did you guys ever watch The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls thing?
Yes.
No. That documentary was excellent, but it was also frustrating because it would be like 1998, and then it would slide back on the timeline to 1984, and then it would slide forward to like 2021. And it always seemed like it was sticking and moving rather than, okay, there's no reason for you to have to jump around on this timeline so much. This is what this documentary does. Now, that may work for a lot of people. It certainly did work with The Last Dance for a lot of people. I overall enjoyed that. I just didn't like the sudden jarring nature of like, okay, now we're in Game 7 in the 1991 fucking NBA championship. You know what I mean?
I understand. I know that, B-roll wise, this helps fill in some of your time. It creates a setting, which is something that we always, what's the famous book about the Kansas murders? In
Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood, which is I think is the first of these sort of that is credited as the one that puts in the setting where it's like, here's what people in Kansas were like in this town.
The true crime thing that has to have the context.
So the drone footage is supposed to be this thing. Well, this is an ordinary suburb. Just look at how my camera catches that from my drone.
My name is Lester Burnham. This is my neighborhood.
Exactly. This is the day that I die. It's like you would think by now filmmakers would be like, oh my God, I saw this in every other documentary in the last 3 years. So maybe I should do something different.
Right. I imagine the storyboards. They just draw one storyboard of an overhead drone shot of this subdivision, and then you Xerox that
or
shit.
just a picture of a drone.
There's the drone that filmed 90% of our film. Yeah. But it's a very compelling story. There are people that went through some really tough shit, and no joke about that with this experience. And they did get very interesting people to interview. But I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately, and you can really tell a good documentary versus like a mediocre documentary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can.
And it's not even personal style. We've talked about, Jeremy's preference of like, letting the footage be the footage, letting the story be the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand both ways. I don't mind an interventionalist type of story sometimes, as long as it's done well. In this one, not quite there.
Yeah, have you seen there's a Heaven's Gate one of these on one of these channels too? I haven't.
I've seen one of them. It was probably not the one you're thinking about, because I think it was on A&E or something like that.
Oh yeah, this is like on Hulu or Amazon Prime or something like that. I watched an episode of it, but I moved on to other things, not because it was bad or anything, but I just dropped it. I want to see it at some point. And then what was the one that had the women from Smallville and all that?
Oh, the NXIVM thing.
The NXIVM.
I did watch all the NXIVM cult thing.
Those were, I think I saw, there's two different ones, I think, for that one.
I saw
they're
one
both
on
fascinating.
Netflix, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same way about this, because it's always fascinating I feel like these cult leaders always they start by saying, I have something that works. You need to try this thing that works. And then they just start, if something's not working, then they start using this sort of like very subtle abuse where it's like, oh, you're a fat fuck because you're not doing this diet the correct way.
You're not praying hard enough. You're not
praying hard enough, all that. And then suddenly people start becoming this like, oh, I need to do this more. I need to show up more. And then the real abuses start when they say, well, you may be praying enough and you may be doing all the things you need to do on the diet enough, but here's some other things that work. And then that's when you start getting into, the sex cult and all that type of thing, is because, they realize they have this power over you at that point. But I'm sure not all of them are like that. I know that NXIVM one was definitely like that. So
yeah, it's wild, man. I mean, just the psychology of how things unravel and also coalesce. It's just the weirdest thing. And this one, because of the personal ties, like really surprised me and horrified me. And again, I think they're gathering information on the cause of the death and the cause of the plane crash. I think that's pretty well established at this point, but maybe they're waiting for other legal issues to play out before the next 2 episodes.
Okay, well, we're going to do some more recommends and warns. I have a rec-a-warn of the card counter. I saw this a few weeks ago. And we just haven't had recommends and warns for a long time. So I actually had to think back like to a whole bunch of stuff. I was trying to think, what do I want to talk about on here? I've seen a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And I've rewatched some movies but the card counter I actually saw in theaters. Paul Schrader, it was funny on Slack. We were going back and forth with like, does he have like a good filmography? We're not sure. I mean, obviously he wrote Taxi Driver and he wrote Raging Bull, but his directing, like there's not many on there that you would say that's a classic. He got a reemergence with First Reformed when that came out. And the card counter, I think there's a little bit of a bias for me on this, because when I go into gambling movies, I want to see the main character gamble. I want to see them play games of chance, and I want them to play poker, and I want the poker to not be like the shit that's in Casino Royale. I want it to be like that. So, but if you know your Paul Schrader, you know that and this is sort of what I formulated during this. I could be completely off, but it seems like Paul Schrader's stories are often about you are never the person that people peg you as. You're not your job, basically. In this movie, Oscar Isaac is playing a gambler who, he counts cards, yes, but he also plays poker and all this. You kind of know right off the bat that he's not a serious, he's not this isn't going to be a movie where at the end he's going to lose it all and he's going to have to find a way to gain back, $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever he needs to win the movie. Yeah, from Teddy KGB. And because at the very beginning he says something to the effect of, I play blackjack just to the point where the casino isn't going to get pissed off at me for winning too much. So he's very conservative in all this. And there's this sort of there is some poker that there's a sort of a thread of poker that goes through here. It's some of the best stuff in the movie, because there is this one villain, quote unquote. He's not really a villain. He has this way about him where he's every time he wins a hand, his whole entourage jumps up and is like, USA, USA. and he's got this style of, he's wearing American flags and, stuff like that. And he's of course he's winning every single poker tournament. He never loses. I never understood this about Hollywood movies. It's this guy is so good, he wins everything. There's no such thing as luck.
Yeah, it's like Shooter McGavin winning every fucking golf tournament in Happy Gilmore, when even the best fucking players in the world don't win every fucking tournament.
Yeah. And I guess they have to make it where, I don't know, I guess that's the way, that's sort of the method by which anyway, it's neither here nor there really, because they set this up to where the poker is going to be really important. Oscar Isaac runs into Tiffany Haddish. I love Tiffany Haddish, but she is not good in this movie. It's just one of those things where it feels like she's uncomfortable playing this character a little bit. Maybe in further viewings down in the future or whatever, I might be like, oh, you know what? I didn't really notice what she was doing there, but on the first impression, I was like, no. But he runs into Tiffany Haddish, and Tiffany Haddish wants to set him up with winning, going into these poker tournaments. And we see him make it far in a couple, but there's this guy that keeps winning. He's the best or whatever. Meanwhile, there's this character played by Ty Sheridan. He runs into Ty Sheridan knows a secret. Knows of some secret that Oscar Isaac has, and it's that he used to be I think it's Abu Ghraib is where he was. And there were a lot, obviously there was some really fucking evil shit that went down at Abu Ghraib, and he was part of it, and Ty Sheridan's dad was part of it, and something happened to his dad, and Willem Dafoe was the leader of this of what was going on at Abu Ghraib. And so he has this hard on for killing Willem Dafoe in this movie. And Oscar Isaac is basically like, no, you don't want to do that, basically. And he takes this kid under his wing and teaches him, this is what you want to do. And they're to a point where he is telling this kid, go to college, make a name for yourself, go and do this job. It's almost like Fight Club, right, where Brad Pitt and Edward Norton drag the dude out of the convenience store and tell him to run off, and he's like, tomorrow will be the best day of his life. He will not be working at a convenience store anymore. He'll go to college, blah 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 blah. Oscar Isaac's kind of doing that, except in a less weird way that that Brad Pitt do in Fight Club. So there's this thread going on. So Oscar Isaac, we think, okay, the whole thing is leading up to this big poker tournament and everything. Of course, something happens where Oscar Isaac the poker tournament's not important anymore. So that's where the movie leads to. I warn it mainly just because it's very good. It's very captivating. It's just that it doesn't go into that, and sometimes not going in a direction that you expect is great. And in this case, it's fine. It totally works. It's just that I think for me, I wish a movie about gambling would actually show you that would be the main crux of the movie a lot of times. And that poker tournament would be important in some way. And I know that Paul Schrader is not interested in that. So I don't want to grade a movie on what it's not, because this is obviously where he wanted to go on this. And the direction is fine. It's just that I felt a little bit of a twinge of like, oh, I wanted to see him play that poker tournament. Oh, and it it doesn't work out that way. But I thought the movie was very compelling, very good. I'm going to watch it again at some point, probably. It's just that there are some things about it, Tiffany Haddish, and just the sort of the overall direction of where this movie goes. It's not a complete like sell job. I don't want to like totally recommend it to people, but I'm on the recommend side of the Reco-Warren. So
where do you stand on Ty Sheridan? What do we think of this kid so far? He's Ready Player One kid, right?
I keep getting him confused for Taylor Sheridan. I watched a bit of a Nicolas Cage movie called Joe that had Ty Sheridan.
Oh, yeah, that's a good movie.
It was good. I didn't get to finish it, but I thought he was great in that. And when I looked him up, I was like, Ready Player One. So, yeah, I think he's got a brighter future than that movie showed.
Yeah, I can't tell you that I was like completely sold on the character he was playing in this movie. That's one thing. I think Paul Schrader must have thought that the stunt casting was going to work, or the casting against type maybe was going to work on this, and it doesn't. I think you need more grungy type of people in this than Tiffany Haddish and Ty Sheridan playing these characters. And so it comes off kind of weird. It's like if you were to make Gwyneth Paltrow like a gambling, guru or something, like, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, Oscar Isaac is great in this. It's obviously a movie made for adults, which is something that you don't see very often anymore. But yeah, overall, like I said, I'm on the recommend side of Reco-Warren. Just know that there are some things about it that you're going to kind of, I wish it was something else.
I don't think I've seen a bad Oscar Isaac performance so far.
No,
like even in shitty movies, like Last Jedi.
yeah.
Well, even Inside Llewyn Davis, which I have mixed feelings about. He's terrific in that. Yeah, he's got the touch.
Any of you guys watching that Jessica Chastain show with him on HBO?
No, have you?
I haven't seen that yet. No.
Well, it's on my list, but I'm waiting to be able to binge it. I'm repeating myself a lot today.
I'm in a marriage. I don't need scenes from one.
But you love that ScarJo Adam Driver marriage movie.
It was a movie. That wasn't a mini-series that I have to invest my time into. I love both of those actors.
5 episodes.
All right.
Anyway, I'm going to give you a solid Warren without an ounce of Recca. You know how I do, flipping channels. Find a movie I've never heard of from the mid-aughts. Stars Michael Keaton and Robert Downey Jr. And I'm like, I'll check it out. It's called Game 6.
Can only mean one thing.
Can only mean one thing. That it's about a playwright who skips his opening night of his new play to watch the Red Sox 1986 Game 6 in the World Series. The Bill Buckner ball through the legs, losing the World Series to the Mets. Now, this is about 3 different movies rolled into one. And it's very uneven. And it just goes to some wild-ass places. So we only see Robert Downey Jr. He's a critic. And everybody says he's a notorious hard-ass of a critic who, even if he doesn't like your play, he won't be kind in his review. He will eviscerate you.
It's almost Birdman.
This is very Birdman.
Okay, there's very much. There's a lot. This would be a good double feature for Birdman if this movie wasn't so boring. So we only ever see Robert Downey Jr. In these ethereal, wandering through his loft apartment, which is full of paintings and tapestries and Buddha statues and eclectic shit, while he over narrates, pontificating about art and life and whatnot. As we get towards the end, we see him a little bit more, but for the most part, he's playing some kind of a drugged up bard. I'm not sure what his purpose is in the beginning of this movie. But we're following Michael Keaton. He's in the middle of a nasty divorce, and he's good friends with Griffin Dunne. But Griffin Dunne had a bad review from Robert Downey Jr. a few years ago, and it just sent him into a tailspin, and he's basically homeless, carrying a gun, and constantly muttering the actual review that Robert Downey Jr. wrote about his play. This is where the movie starts to get weird, because his play, he says it was a one-time performance, literally on the docks, put on just for the fishermen. But the New York Times critic apparently showed up to that and eviscerated it so bad, this guy never wrote another play in his life. And he turned into Robin Williams in The Fisher King.
What is going on already here?
Now, we meet Michael Keaton's daughter, who's very lovely. Ari Grainer. She's been in other stuff.
Yeah. She was in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Yeah. She's almost all sarcastic every time her dad is like, why can't we just have a normal conversation? Why can't things just be the way they used to be? And she's like, oh, you mean going through a huge non-amicable divorce with mom? Why would that change anything? But she's like punk. Her hair's all punk. This is the 80s, mind you. So she's like Cyndi Lauper, basically looking. Fishnet things. And they see each other a couple of times, but it all takes place in one day. And tonight's the big opening of Michael Keaton's play. Now, here's one thing I really don't understand. He has apparently never gotten a review from this guy, even though this is his 6th or 7th play. He's an established, known playwright. I guess you would say he's famous even among theater circuits. But they never mention him ever getting a bad review from this guy. They only mention everybody else getting bad reviews, but he knows this guy's coming tonight, and he's nervous. That doesn't make any sense to me. This guy probably would have reviewed every single play, and even later says he's seen every single play Michael Keaton has written, but he apparently never reviewed them? I don't know. But Keaton is freaked about this, which would be an interesting Birdman-type movie, right? But then you got to throw in all this Boston Red Sox shit. So he's constantly talking about the Red Sox. This is taking place in New York. It's not even in Boston. But he's constantly reciting play calls from famous Boston defeats. Now, it's no secret that Boston has snatched defeat from the jaws of victory several times in their history as an organization. The one he keeps talking about is the 46 series. Yes, where Enos Slaughter ran from first base all the way to home to score and win the game. And apparently he was a tubby guy who wasn't very fast. But he keeps reciting play calls from famous Boston losses throughout the movie, like he's every bit as obsessed. He's every bit as obsessed with the Boston Red Sox losing as Griffin Dunne is with the bad review that he got that derailed his career. This is the obvious parallel they're going for here. So it's also known, apparently, that Robert Downey Jr., when he goes to review a play, he dresses up in makeup and disguises, and he carries a gun because he's afraid of being recognized by angry playwrights like Griffin Dunn, who are walking around memorizing the review and carrying a gun. I'm going to spoil the fuck out of this movie, by the way. I hope you didn't think I wasn't. So we start seeing him putting on makeup, the little Mrs. Doubtfire-y, this part where he's putting on wigs and whatnot and trying on outfits, still pontificating about life and art and bullshit.
What the fuck?
Michael Douglas goes out for a walk. Oh, the funniest subplot. Michael Keaton. The funniest subplot.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Michael Douglas just.
He's extra paranoid about tonight's opening night because his lead actor, a famous actor, Gregory Peck type actor, has a brain parasite and can't remember any of his lines. Oh, I'm dead serious. We see a scene with him. This is the night of the performance, and the child actor is supposed to say, "This could be it," and the old man is supposed to say, "This could be it," but he can't remember the line, even though it's been said right before that. So then Michael Keaton goes, I need to go for a walk, he constantly finds himself in a cab talking to the cab driver because he used to drive a cab. And he constantly talks about which bridges he used to pee under and how he misses driving a cab. He asks all the cab drivers, where do you pee? I used to pee under the Manhattan Bridge. So he gets in a cab, and this woman mistakes him for somebody she knows. That's never explained. And they all go to a bar together because her nephew's with her. Yay. And then the game is on, and it's full of Mets fans, obviously. And he's watching Game 6, and the only time we cut to the play is to show that in the audience, Robert Downey Jr.'s critic is sitting 2 rows behind Michael Keaton's daughter. We don't really see much of the play. They lose Game 6, of course. This is history. Movie's not changing that like Tarantino. But Michael Keaton, he goes to the bathroom, washes his face, comes out, and starts telling all the Mets fans, hey, you'll get them next year. That was a good game. Because he thinks they won. Because he's so obsessed, his brain tricked him into thinking they won, and they force him to watch it again, and he realizes they lost. So then he gets a gun, and he goes to the critic's house, where, after the play, Robert Downey Jr. has taken Michael Keaton's daughter home, as you do, and they're about to do it when Michael Keaton kicks the door in with a gun, because he's going to kill this critic. Dude hasn't even had a chance to write a review, good or bad, mind you. So he's just going to kill this guy because the Red Sox lost. But on the way up the stairs, he says this one call. I'm going to butcher it, but he says something like slaughter rounding third or something like this. Mm-hmm. So he goes up there and he starts yelling at the critic. You ruined my life. You ruined so many lives, blah, 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 blah. But there's a TV on and a news report comes on. It says, well, the Mets took down the Red Sox tonight, and Robert Downey Jr. gets distracted because guess what? He's a Red Sox fan too.
Oh,
Michael Keaton doesn't believe it until Robert Downey Jr. turns and goes, slaughter rounding third. And then he's like, God. Oh shit, we're the same person. And they literally sit down and watch the play again of the ball going through Buckner's legs, and now they're buddies commiserating on, how did he miss that? He's such a good player. We'll get him next year. Oh, the Red Sox are always giving me a... And then the movie ends.
This is... I would imagine the reason why he thinks the Red Sox won was because that game, the Red Sox were up. I believe it was 5-2, I believe. In the
they had like a 2 or 3 run lead.
I think it was about 5-2, and the Mets got 2 outs. And so all that shit happened with 2 outs. It was so certain that they were going to win that NBC, I believe, who was carrying the World Series, Bob Costas came down into the Red Sox locker room to interview them after the game. Jesus. Because they was expecting, and they had all these, the plastic up for the champagne being splashed around and everything. And Costas was down in this locker room when all this stuff happened with the Mets, and they came back to win it and everything. And apparently Costas was like, "What do you want me to do?" And the NBC director guy goes, "You get out of there. You get the fuck out of there now." And and he said it was so weird. Like, we all got our stuff, and like everybody who was putting up the plastic and everything took all that plastic down, and it didn't look like anything had happened by the time we walked out. And The other weird thing about that is if they truly were saying wait till next year or whatever, I mean, there was another game after that. They had another game after that. It went to game 7. So it's weird that they thought, I mean, I think most people thought it didn't matter. In fact, it didn't. Like the Red Sox had like 2 or 3 leads in game 7 and it just didn't matter.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
This is like people. Okay, I always knew the Miracle on Ice wasn't the final gold medal game, but people get that confused all the time. But this is what you're doing to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this game when the ball went through his legs. I watched it. That was not the winning.
That just tied the series.
Holy shit.
They went to game 7. The Red Sox had, like I said, the Red Sox had 2 or 3 leads in game 7, and the Mets kept coming back every single time and ended up winning game 7.
All right. That I feel like a bad baseball fan now.
It's like the 2003 Cubs where the Steve Bartman game was game 6.
Yeah.
And the Marlins had to come back and to Wrigley.
In fact, the Cubs got a big lead in game 7 and still lost that game.
Yep.
I also think it's weird that this movie came out. That's one game 6 that I just talked about, which you can see on Hulu in 2005. Literally 1 year after the Boston Red Sox finally won the World Series, and somebody was like, "I got to go back to the pain. I gotta go back to the pain. I can't enjoy this winning."
It's possible they made it before, because remember, Fever Pitch was a movie that they made that didn't have the Red Sox winning.
Right.
And then the Red Sox made this big, huge run to win the World Series, and they had to change Fever Pitch, like that was going to be a better movie just because the Red Sox won.
So much better.
There's that thing where you watch the series, and you're like, why is Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon kissing on the field afterwards? It's because they changed the ending to the movie that they were making, and they were. Yeah.
I just pulled up the Wikipedia for this movie. First of all, Michael Keaton's playing a character named Rogan, which is weird because this character in Birdman is Regan.
Yeah,
that is weird.
Yeah.
So the last paragraph in the plot is Rogan not only finds the critic, but sees him in the early stages of deflowering the playwright's daughter.
The early stages.
Yeah, like they weren't quite there yet.
You got to prime it. You got to
You want to pull a hammy.
It's the early stages of deflowering his daughter.
What would you say you are in the early stages of deflowering?
I can tell you, as I saw the movie, she had her shirt off and they were dry hump kissing on the couch.
Oh, okay. So that would be the early stages of deflowering for sure. Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to watch this movie now.
It reminds me of the IMDb, and anytime there's like they talk about the sex and the nudity or whatever, there's the people who write this stuff, man. They're like, I would be afraid of them in public probably, because it's just they have weird descriptions of sex and stuff there's a scene with a man and his pants are down, and the lady is, and they'll say stuff like the lady is putting her mouth on his penis or whatever, and it's like, can you just say blowjob? Can you not say that?
She is putting her mouth on his penis.
Yeah, it's like no, dude. You're describing this like someone who's never even seen sex before.
It's like when my dad didn't want me to say bullshit, so I tried cow poop, but that didn't go over much better.
You're all right with that. It's funny. I'm looking at the poster. Homeboy even looks. He's got the same goatee as Birdman. This is fucking Birdman. This is very, very weird.
Whenever you see something like this, isn't there something in the back of your mind that says that Inarritu saw that movie and then made his own movie from that?
Man, there's a lot of fucking parallels here.
This is a terrible movie, but I can make it better by taking out the defloration of the daughter.
And calling him Regan instead of Rogan.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I guess if you think Emma Stone is a virgin in Birdman, you could say that maybe Edward Norton deflowers her or whatever.
I guess. Oh my God, BB, your girl, your what's her
BB
name?
Newirth?
Clarice.
Yeah.
Did you say BB Newirth?
Yeah. No, she's in there.
That's who's in the movie.
Oh,
she's
okay.
in
I don't
there,
know why
but
he's
what's
saying
her-
Clarice.
No, what's her name in Frasier?
Lilith.
Oh, I thought it was Clarice.
You were close. She's in that movie for literally like 2 minutes, by the way. I was disappointed.
Who plays the old dude that has the parasite? Shalom Harlow?
Oh, I didn't recognize his name, but his face, you know it. It's oh shit, I'm on the wrong browser. How?
Roger Rees?
Oh, former Cheers player, Roger Rees.
Oh, so he's got a reunion
No, it's
with
Harris Yulin.
Harris Yulin. Okay.
But Roger Rees is Roger Rees and BB Newirth is a Cheers reunion.
There you go. Catherine O'Hara's in this too. I'm probably gonna watch this movie, man.
Next pod, Barrett recommends Game 6.
Yes.
So the warn is from just how like scattershot this whole thing is.
Yeah, like man, pick a lane. Like you can't have all three. Even two of those might have. Once you start throwing in the brain parasite, we're in silly territory. But then you want me to be very concerned when a gun is brought up at the end and he points it at somebody. But then you want me to sway my emotional. Just like when he quotes that slaughter rounding third or whatever, that's as bad as why did you say that name? Like it's just like that was what he like. If you have memorized a 1946 radio call from the Boston Red Sox losing the World Series, you're good with me, bro. It's like if two motorcyclists pass each other on the road and they're like instantly on the same team.
Enos Slaughter is that guy's Martha.
Yeah.
Why did you say that name? Why did you make that call?
Prove that you're a fan of this team, and he just goes like slaughter rounding third. Like he could have said anything. Anyway, it's all over the place. So
this is the same year that Robert Downey Jr. did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, right?
I guess.
If it's 2005, then yes.
He's certainly not getting any big, huge tentpole offers at this point.
Man, I'm gonna watch this shit.
But I think he's out of his criminal druggy days at this point.
Yeah. All right.
Paying his dues.
Yeah, that's happening for me. This,
all right. It's on Hulu. I hope you enjoy it. I actually do want to know what you think if you do watch it.
Oh, for sure. I will let you know. I'll round out this round with very, very brief stuff because I haven't finished Squid Game, but everybody's talking about Squid Game. Mm-hmm. This is the series, the Korean series that premiered on Netflix, and God, this is the most watched show ever in the history of the universe, including Alpha Centauri and shit like that. Like it's getting so much buzz. And it's getting TikTok challenges, and it's getting all kinds of craziness. From what I've seen, it's a good show.
I have.
Good show.
I'm anxious to see this show because it sounds delightfully weird. But I have just read this morning. There's at least a tiny bit of controversy about the translation of the subtitles to English. People who speak both Korean and English pointing out several scenes where the actual intent of a comment is completely changed by lazy translation. So I may wait a bit to see if they sort that out. It's gotten enough buzz. I feel like Netflix will address it and change it.
That happens a weird amount of times. I remember when we were sending Ghost in the Shell, the animated one,
right? Yeah.
The good one, I guess.
Yes.
I remember I had the settings in such a way that the English subtitles and I think the dub were both on the screen. So right. So it was like someone was saying something and the subtitles underneath were wrong.
Yeah, because we send the subbed version, right? We send the dubbed version, I should say.
I can't remember what we did. I think we actually, I think we send the subtitled version with I mean, they were speaking Japanese and we had the English translation underneath. But that is a weird thing. Like, yeah, there is a lot that we lose in those translations. And I don't know why they make, if you have somebody who really knows their shit that's translating this stuff, you would think they'd know how to emote the intent in the words. Maybe some of these people that translate this stuff, who knows? I'd love to talk to somebody who does that.
Yeah,
me too. Just a hair of a fascinating experience with that. When I first self-published The Ables in 2015, there was a French publisher that picked it up to publish in France. Les Prodigies. But I had a few back and forths with the guy who translated from English to French. And it was fascinating because almost every time he was like, there's really no French word for what you're describing here in English. Here's an English translation of how I think the French would say it. And then I would have to choose the closest to what my intent was. And then there was a lot of times where it was just phrases, idioms, the way people speak colloquially that just isn't done in other countries. And so to use a direct translation would confuse the reader. Whereas in America, toe the line means something. The French translation of toe the line might make them go, why are you talking about toes right now?
Towing the line means the early process of deflowering someone.
Right, yes. Right. It's like, yeah, I mean, the French term for window shopping is faire du lèche vitrine, which is window licking. And it's like, when did that ever fucking come in? Like, oh, I'm licking windows, man. I'm shopping. How the fuck did that come through?
Anyway,
how did that become a thing?
Squid Game is kind of a combination between The Matrix and The Raid and the game and like all the
games.
Stuff. It's very, very good. The contestants are recruited based on, they're poor or they're in debt, and they are forced to play children's games at their own peril. And it's very, very good. The acting is odd. It's an odd choice. Sometimes it's way over the top. Sometimes it's nice and subtle. I am not going to compare this to all of Korean cinema or TV because I've seen enough Korean cinema and TV to where, I don't think this is indicative of what I've seen so far. So it's good. It's got a great premise, interesting stuff. I'm going to watch the rest of it. And good stuff.
I would say that this is overall a good series. There is one episode, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's called Ganbu, which is a marbles game that they play later on in this thing. That episode is awesome, and it's devastating, and it's one of the best TV show episodes I have ever seen. It reminded me of the Futurama episode called Jurassic Bark, where
the dog,
where Fry is trying to revive his old dog from the 1999 and everything. That episode is really good. Much like when I watch Hunger Games, or anything with games in it, I don't really care about the oppression. I'm sorry. I don't care about the political aspects of anything. I want to watch it. I want to see The Running Man. I want to see, even though The Running Man has its own, look at what they're doing with prisoners. That's wrong or whatever. It's so ancillary to the whole movie that you just watched. I want to see games. I want to see like strategy being thrown into the mix. I want to see, and it seems like writers of these shows and creators of these shows never really want to fully form out something like this for some reason. The idea is not so much that they're playing games, but it's how do they get out of this? And I don't care if they get out of this. I want them to see, I want them to play the games. I want to see how they win, and I want to see them win with their brains and their brawn and whatever else that they got on them that wins games. And so overall, I enjoyed this series. That one episode I talked about, fucking phenomenal. It's worth watching the whole series for. So,
did you find that and maybe this balances out later in the series, did you find that the acting was a little odd, that they made some odd choices?
Your main guy has his quirks to him.
Yeah.
That goes away by the second episode. He's actually really good. A stable presence in the show. But that first one where he's basically like playing a desperate man, it does feel over the top. It feels like they're playing some sort of like fucking farce kind of thing. Like he's in a farce and he's like, I hope they don't see me naked or some bullshit like that.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the second episode, at least towards the beginning, like he's very over the top, and even though he's trying to explain exactly what happened and everything. But okay, good. Because there's some very intriguing characters, throughout. I've read all kinds of things about the creator was working on this for like 10 years or something like that. Couldn't get it sold. And now it's in big old thing,
much like, because this show has some elements of Saw to it too. I'm not saying it's torture porn or anything like that, but a lot of the games that they throw in there, it's impossible. I mean, it's possible, I suppose. There's a point where there's a game where a guy figures all the numbers in his head, and it's like 1 in 32,000 chance that he will survive the game. I don't like those really. The episode where that guy figures that out, that episode is really good. But I like stuff where people actually have a chance and they can actually methodically think through something and figure it out. And this show is a little nihilistic, and it's we're trying to whittle 456 contestants down to, those most important characters in the show. So we're going to murder all these people during these games, so that we can get to that quickly. And none of the games have, except for a couple, have any sort of satisfying, way about them. But overall, I would say, yes, it's worth its hype.
Speaking of taking 10 years to complete something, Patrick shared with me a quote yesterday of Steven Soderbergh talking about Mad Max Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard this? He says, I don't understand how George Miller does that. I really don't. And it's my job to understand it. I don't understand two things. I don't understand how they're not still shooting that film, and I don't understand how hundreds of people aren't dead.
I mean, it goes to show that if you give good filmmakers time to do something, then I feel like it's usually really good when it comes out. The problem is the commerce of it all prevents you from doing that. So you alluded to that, Jeremy, about making the Furiosa movie. He's not going to have 10 years like he had last time. He's going to have it's going to be about 6 by the time it comes out. But it hasn't been sitting there gestating, and he hasn't been able to sit there and go, that's not going to work. And then when he goes on set, he's like, all right, we can confidently make this movie. Everybody, even the best directors are down to a time crunch a lot of times, and these movies that they make can't be the best that they can be.
Yep.
That's going to do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter, Discord, and SoundCloud. That's going to do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit Cinemasins.com.
What were you going to say about Seinfeld? I mean, I was interested in it. It was just that I was sitting there like, I want to say stuff about Squid Game when he's done, and then
I'll save it. It was literally about one episode that I had seen once back in the day that is now on Netflix. It's the Puerto Rican. So it's
they put it on Netflix?
Yeah, all of them, all the episodes.
Well, yeah, but I thought that one was in a vault. I didn't think.
Too, but no, it's on there.
It's the
Which
Puerto
one would
Rican,
that be?
But Puerto Rican Parade episode.
Yeah, it's on there.
Famously only aired once on NBC.
Really?
I haven't seen it.
I think I've seen that gay pride one a bunch. I haven't seen the Puerto Rican one.
Well, it's got the same characters. Well, it has those two characters that show up at the end. But yeah, I watched that. That was
who doesn't want to wear the ribbon?
That's right.
I think the main thing is it's hard to get like actual practice in.
Yeah, you're either playing or you're not, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Yesterday I had the course fairly to myself, so there were moments where I was able to kind of take a practice shot here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always, cognizant that there might be people behind me at some point. That
you are a rarity in any sort of golf, my friend.
Dude, today I got there were two people in front of me. The guy who was in front was going at a normal pace, but I think most of these people who come out, they fancy themselves as future pro disc golfers or something. I don't know what it is.
Really?
Because they come out there and they, they're just like they do the stretches, and then they're like, they practice, they do a little practice like, motion before they go and everything. Yeah. But the thing that annoyed me about the guy directly in front of me, he would not only take forever. I saw him on the first tee when I was driving up to get in the parking lot. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to mill about a little bit before I start walking over there, because he's one of these guys. And I think he threw one. I mean, there's some people who go out there and they're like, I'm going to throw 2 discs because I'm practicing and I'm trying to get better and blah 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 blah. Every time, because it's it's wet out there and it started to rain a little bit. Every time he would get to the next tee, and I would sit there and wait for him on the next tee to wait before he shot his shot, so that I could go on my tee and reasonably think that I would be well behind him by the time I get to his tee. But I'm sitting there, I'm waiting on mine, and he's at, I don't know if you remember that one at 3 where there's a big, huge, there's like a circle of trees around it.
Yeah, oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
And there's another tee right
back on the I know.
Yeah, there's another tee right next to it that's the fourth hole, which you throw and it's like
the woods, right?
Goes into the woods.
Yeah.
I was sitting there waiting for him, and I saw him. I sat there, was on the phone, sitting there looking at stuff, Twitter, blah 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 blah, and he's sitting there like wiping off his discs. He'd clean one off, and I would be like, okay, he's cleaned that one off, so now he needs to go. And then the second disc, he'd pull out and wipe it off.
These guys, man. It's even worse than golf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are those guys in golf, too. I mean, the guys that hit 2 balls because I'm practicing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are guys who don't have quite the talent they think they do, but they take all the time of Bryson DeChambeau or Sergio Garcia in terms of their waggle and their warm up. And there's a great commercial. Actually, it's not a great commercial. There's a commercial you probably haven't seen unless you watch the Golf Network, where Ricky Fowler and 3 anonymous guys are about to tee off, and some dude pulls up in a cart and says, "Mind if I play through?" And Ricky Fowler's like, "No, go ahead," because this is what you do in golf. But then the guy gets up there and starts stretching, and he gets down on the ground to look at the ball at ground level. He takes a bunch of practice swings. He takes for fucking ever, and then he like chunks it a few yards. Anyway.
One thing Jeremy does, besides play golf really well, but he always plays what you call ready golf. Like, I will take a practice swing. I don't think I take too long. Maybe I do.
You absolutely don't.
Yeah, I mean, well, you saw me on the tee box. Like, I'll try to line up and see what shot I want to hit. Rarely hit it that way, and then I'll get up and I'll take a practice swing, and then I'll hit. Jeremy gets up and fucking goes, and that's the way you really should play.
Yeah,
I think I take a little bit too much time, but
there's times where I should take a beat and not throw it because I'm like, especially at that course, because there's moments where you have to walk up some goddamn hill and
no shit.
And you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
The one by the electric tower where you're like fucking straight uphill.
The one, yeah, at Crockett, after you finish with, you finish with 9. You finish with the 9th hole, and then you have to go back up the hill to 10. Yeah, and I get up to
all
that
downhill and pretty and everything, but then you got to go fucking right straight up.
And I get up the hill, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to take a break. I need to look at a phone for a second. I need to all this, and then I just end up just going ahead and throwing it anyway, because I just want to get through. I want to go ahead and throw the disc because that's what I'm sitting here. That's what I'm here for.
Dotson. We got Dotson here. See, nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Hey, I finally found somebody to clean out my fucking culvert.
Ooh, nice.
What was the answer?
Let me tell you, this has been more of an ordeal than trying to get my grill redelivered from Alabama. Like, the first thing I did was I called the contractor guy that built my mailbox because I thought he's a contractor. And he's like, nah, I can't do that. I don't know that. I don't do that kind of work. I was like, all right. The next thing I called was my plumbing company because they do both indoor plumbing, but they also do all this septic tank work. And I thought, hey, they've got a lot of equipment. And they're like, oh, we don't do that. I was like, great. So then I started Googling, and I called Roto-Rooter because they have offices everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And I got a local dude, and he's like, well, how big is your culvert? And I told him, it's almost like 3 feet wide. And he goes, well, that can't be right. and I said, it's pretty fucking big. And he said, why don't you take a picture and text it to this number? I was like, all right. So I did, and I never heard anything for a day. So the next day, I texted again, and I was like, did those pictures come through? And the guy's like, wrong number. I'm like, fuck. So I go through the whole thing again, call a different Roto-Rooter guy answers, gives me a different number to text to. I text him the pictures, and he says, oh, we can't do that. That's out of our scope. So at this point is when Chris has recommended to me Public Works. So I email Public Works of my city, and I get an out-of-office email back saying I won't be back in until the 4th. That was yesterday. So she emails me back and says, the city will actually clean the culvert for you if you're in the city limits. Unfortunately, you are not. I'm like, thank you for dashing my hopes. She goes, you could call the county highway department. I don't know if they can help. And I was like, all right, great. So I called the county highway department. They can't help. So I'm getting pretty desperate. And at this point, I find this national jet vac company that does industrial plumbing and line clearing and storm drain cleaning with a jet-powered vacuum. And the website's like, we've got 400 different sites in the U.S., and then we're in all 50 states, yada, yada. I'm like, all right. So I emailed this company because they had an email form. It was 9 p.m. So then I get a guy who comes out and spends 2 seconds in my driveway. He would literally pulls in, doesn't get out of the car, and reverses and leaves. And then I get a call from the boss man who's not local. And he was like, okay, so it's a little outside of our scope of work, but we can probably do it. But it's going to be pretty expensive. And I think you'd save money if you went with a local plumber or a contractor. And I was like, dude, you are the 9th person I have tried. Everyone says, no, they can't do it.
My time
is worth more than your expensive. Let's do this. And so then he quotes me a price, and it's not that expensive at all.
Right.
It's a third of what I was expecting it to cost. And they're going to come out tomorrow morning, clean that bitch out. and we're not going to be flooded anymore. Independent contractors also are like, fuck a website. I still have business cards. I still use a beeper. Like, even when I needed to get the mailbox built, I emailed my realtor and I was like, who the hell do I have do this? He was like, I don't know. And then you start Googling if you try and Google just a general contractor, all you're going to get is bullshit fronts for Angie's List and homehelper.bob or whatever, where it's going to send your information to like 20 different people who are going to then call you and leave you their beeper number for you to call back. Yeah, we're going to fire it up. We keep stocking up on firewood, so we'll have plenty.
You're going to have a whole like fucking backyard full of firewood.
I don't want to have too much because I know firewood is how you get spiders and snakes. So
that's right.
I'll keep it down to a minimum.
Nothing wrong with a little spider.
I remember in my old apartment,
mm-hmm.
I kept this wood by this fireplace that I never used. Like for years, I had it there, and I luckily didn't have not any spiders that I saw anyway. But luckily, I was sitting there going, "Man, I've had that stack of wood sitting there for like 3 years. There's got to be like all the brown recluses."
Yeah. Is that a wood burning fireplace?
Yeah.
No shit. You never used it, did you?
Never used it.
Yeah. See, I had a gas burning fireplace at my last house. I have a gas burning fireplace at this house. Never used them.
What? How are you not using a fireplace? I love me a fireplace, man.
Honestly, at this point, I would have to look at a YouTube video to even know fucking how to do it. Like, I know they're fairly standard in how they operate, but I don't have any clue.
Well, you probably, for your one now, you probably just hit a button on the remote and like...
No, it's like, there's like a, what's it called? Igniter, and then like a primer, and you have to like pump the primer and then hold the igniter to clear the lines. I did it once. I mean, I watched the YouTube video once. I didn't actually turn on the...
I totally did. I mean, I watched the YouTube. It's my birthday today, and I was like, I'm going to go out.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was going to go out and get something like fancy. And then I was like, I don't really feel like getting anything fancy. First of all, there's nothing fancy in my neighborhood. So I was like, if you could have anything right now, what would you want? I was like, I would want a big bowl of pasta with some like garlic and truffle oil and fucking like...
That's the shit.
Parmesan, Mazithra cheese, of course. And it was the tits.
Nice.
I jerked off afterwards.
Nice.
I didn't. But if I did, I would have olive oil. Okay. Let's stop it.
Hey, it's your birthday. You can use whatever pasta you want to masturbate.
Bucatini's the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
thanks,
happy
man.
birthday to Barrett.
This time 2 years ago, I was sitting by the Louvre.
Yes.
Louvre. What about Brett Favre?
Favre.